Hello and welcome to the Wednesday podcast live presented by This is Ibrox. I'm your host, Kyle McLean, and as always, I'm joined by two fantastic guests. First of all, it's the World Ranger himself. How are you doing, GB?
Yeah, no, very well. All good. Looking forward to getting back to talk about Rangers, speculation, and everything else. But just before we go any further, big shout out to Kenny Park in the Bluebell Bar in Lanzarote. Looked after me and a few of the lads this weekend. Unfortunately, we had the St Mirren game on. I did ask him to switch it off, but he was having none of it. But no, we had a good afternoon and a good session there, and well looked after by himself and Big Fraser as well. So no, big shout out to anyone who's in Lanzarote. Get yourself down there. So
There you
all
go.
good.
There's your plug for you, Kenny, in the podcast. Go and check it out if you're if you're over there. And Ian, how are you doing? I was going to say it feels like it's been a while since I've been on a pod with you, but I suppose it's not been that long. It just feels that way in the world
Yeah,
of Rangers. How are you
the
doing?
days
Given
are
everything that's going on?
certainly the days are dragging in at the moment. Just same as everybody, waiting for this season to finish, waiting for this takeover to hopefully go through, and just get some positivity back. Because Old Firm at the weekend, and I'm not even that bothered about it, which is depressing in itself. But yeah, glad to talk about Rangers as always. There's not been a game for a few days, so that's been nice. But I'm fine, man. All good.
No, that's good to hear. On today's show, as always, we'll talk about all things Rangers, given the slim pickings for today. The takeover being so close, there was one of those clips of the guys doing the rounds, walking around Ibrox, but to the tune of Reservoir Dogs, which I absolutely absolutely loved. I'll get the guys' thoughts and expectations. How big a job have they got? The other thing that seems to be coming out, sort of being drip fed to us this week, is all the Red Bull stuff. Maybe is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What do the guys think of it? Tapping into that network. Are we going to be giving up some of the traditions that you would associate with the club if we do go into these sort of commercial dealings with them? Chat around some of the Scottish talent. I know earlier on in the seasons, if you'd asked me about players like Lennon Miller, I'd have just thought, that's pie in the sky stuff. But again, with these guys coming in, are these more sort of realistic targets? How important is it to have a Scottish core at Rangers? Casson Wirio playing in that Glasgow Cup game yesterday, scoring the goal. It was like that Undertaker meme. I just once you saw him coming off the pitch, whenever it was, I'd never thought we were going to see him again in a Rangers shirt. But there he is, popping up with a goal. And then obviously we've got the Old Firm at the weekend, the game we're only playing for pride, and we'll get a wee preview of that. But I'll begin with you first here, JB. Yesterday, we all saw the images of the new owners taking that walk round Ibrox. The group included US businessman Andrew Kavanagh, who I think is the kind of leading candidate for being the chairman, coming in to get around the sort of UEFA rules and compliance. The Leeds United chairman, Prag Marat, the Ellen Road technical director, Gretner Steinson, who's a name I just can't seem to escape everything I read Rangers at the moment. 49ers Enterprises director, Raminder Dadwal. They were being shown around by existing CEO Patrick Stewart and chairman Fraser Thornton. What was your thoughts, JB, on finally seeing all these names? I've heard them so many times since February, I think it's been when the story broke. What was your thoughts finally seeing these guys walking around Ibrox yesterday?
Yeah, no, it was almost that little bit of a light bulb moment, a bit of excitement, as in, oh, this is actually happening. Do you know what I mean? Because you hear all the fake stories, the fake over, I think they're calling it, aren't they, on the side, which is top marks for creativity, if nothing else. But yeah, when I seen that kind of them walking through, it was almost a case of, right, here we go, this is it. However, I did get similar feelings when Dave King walked down Edmondson Drive. If you remember that, he was greeted and applauded and everything else.
Yeah.
This does feel different, doesn't it? To be fair, I think this definitely feels more like an established model that's coming in. The records of success in terms of taking clubs that are suffering, getting them on a financial well-being, getting really good sponsorship in and stuff. So I think seeing that was really good. I didn't like the fact they were walking past the Portaloos at the time. I think I'd have missed that part of the tour out. But it was no, it was really, really good to see. And as I say, they've just got to make sure that they're ready. Be interested to see whether if there's a handful of them maybe hanging around for the big one on Sunday, because I think in terms of understanding what you've signed up for, I don't think there's much better in terms of spectacle is there in world football as to what will be there on Sunday, and you consider the circumstances that it's sitting behind as well. There wouldn't be much difference on Sunday's atmosphere to start with as there would be if we were neck and neck going for the league. Do you know what I mean? Because it's just going to be that intense, and that is just the way that it is. Unfortunately, we put ourselves into a situation for Sunday that it's not going to be. It's not going to be. We don't need it as much as what we would normally do. But as soon as that whistle goes on Sunday, it's do or die, isn't it? So yeah, no, good to see them, and yeah, looking forward to hopefully start hearing from them soon. I did find it funny that the fact that Sky Sports and BBC News were just there coincidentally, must have just been passing. So no doubt there's been a little sneaky message sent out from somebody in the club to say you might want to be at Ibrox around 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Something might be happening. But I love the fact you always get the standard picture for somebody in the Blue Sky Lounge having dinner and going, oh look, it's a new signing, or it's this, that, the other. So yeah, no, it was all good, and it's always good when you see a people carrier sitting on this pitch side, isn't it? So it's always when a good announcement gets made. So we'll wait and see whether this is another.
Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, you're on mute, Cal.
Apologies, that's because my next door neighbours are getting work done in their garden and it's very, very loud, so nobody wants to hear that. But I'm laughing, like as you said there, big Rahman always just seems to be in the right place in the right time with these things. I'll never forget. Do you remember the one when he was at Glasgow Airport filming
through the fence? Yeah,
through the fence when the plane was landing through.
Aaron Ramsey, was it?
Yeah. Don't mention the name. Don't scare us again.
Too soon. What was that? He was on the other week or something, wasn't he? Did he come on as a sub? And we were like, we were discussing it in the group where we were like, still too soon. Get him off. You know what I mean? So.
Oh, I know. I can't believe it. But no, it was quite funny. It's one of those ones where you wish you just stayed in the plane in the end. But yeah, Big Rahman always seems to be there. Ian, what's your thoughts on this? Are you happy that this is finally arrived and it's here? And does it make it feel a bit more real for you, if you know what I mean?
I think it does. I was at the fans forum obviously last week, in the way that Patrick Stewart was talking about it, he kind of, with him saying it, you kind of thought, right, okay, this is real now. Like, he's name dropping them, he's mentioning it's moving along. You don't say that kind of stuff unless it's like there or thereabouts kind of thing. Likewise, these guys are going to need to take in Ibrox, see what the state it's in, get a kind of feel for the club. So it just feels like we're getting ever closer to that kind of line in the sand. This phase is done. This new era is coming. Again, it's not going to bring instant success. Obviously, I'm not going to get ahead of myself, but we do need something like this just to kind of kickstart us again, both like on and off the pitch. Like, there's so many problems and issues and confusion about certain things, and obviously the main thing for us is going to be what kind of players we can bring in and get out. So yeah, it's just, as I'm saying, it's a massive step forward. Hopefully it's just a matter of days. I mean, I know it was around May time was always mentioned as being like hopefully confirming all this happening. So it's right around the corner. And as I say, that could hopefully be the kickstart to some more positive times, because my God, they're overdue at this point.
Yeah, no, there was a comment earlier on there where it was Scott Hammond, and he says, thankfully we've got the incoming takeover to talk about, otherwise it would be bleak and depressing. The future is bright. That's the thing with us, Ian, and I'll stick with you for this question here. Everybody seems to have quite a lot of optimism about this. Are you confident that these guys are going to come in and make the right decisions? Have you been liking all the noises that have been coming from them so far and the decisions they've effectively made, i.e. Kevin Thelwell?
I think that's the only thing you can really properly judge them on so far, and he's a great appointment in my eyes. Like, I'm not going to lie, I didn't know the guy this time last week kind of thing, but seeing what he's done, where he's been, that career he's had, it's a really sensible appointment. It's a guy that knows what he's coming into. He's got a clear remit, it seems like, from the comments he's putting out, so it's massive for us, and it's a role that obviously we needed for so long. So the big thing for me, and I know we're going to come on to like what we want this new board to do and the new guys to do, but it's just a bit more continuity for the guys in that kind of level. Like, I want Thelwell to be in his role for years and years and years. I want the chairman to be there for years. I want the director of football, the manager. I want everyone to be in place for a long period of time, because you're not going to get success otherwise. Like, how many guys have come in at that level in the last 3-4 years and lasted a year, 6 months, 18 months, and just move on. And that's not anyone's fault. There's some things you can't be helped, but it's not a coincidence that they're all getting in, trying to fix it, and just running away kind of thing. It needs to be long-term appointments, bring success, and then it just kind of builds from there. And Thelwell's the only thing can go on, and it makes total sense to me. So promising start, but saying early days, it's not even official yet, but very early days, but it's going well.
Yeah, no, yeah, as you say, early, not even happened yet, and it's going well. No, I totally get where you're coming from on that one. But JB, what's the expectation in these guys? Because for me, Rangers is just such a niche club. I know they've effectively, had a plan. It's almost like they've said before, we're going to go and buy a football club. This is the kind of model that we're looking at. Leeds is the right club for us to go and implement this model. And I know it's worked at Leeds. There are similarities, in terms of the very traditional fan base, very passionate, crazy supporters and all that stuff in terms of that, good history of winning trophies, both teams. Is it, to me, Rangers is just such a niche club as it's been shown over the years. There's so many things in terms of personnel that's come in, and I felt this should work on paper, but just because of the Glasgow Goldfish Bowl, what do you think the expectations will be on these guys?
Yeah, I think we've needed to get away from a fan-run club, in terms of a fan with a little bit of money, but not uncountable amount of money, if that makes sense. So these guys who've been in charge at the moment, they've done what they think has been the best thing for the club. They haven't gone out and gone, I tell you what, let's make all these mistakes. Let's not back Gerrard after we won the league. Let's not extend players' contract. Let's not sell at the right time. They just haven't had that acumen to try, and they've done things very short term, and everything's just been panic or throw 10 things against the wall, the hope that one sticks. I'm hoping that these guys, when they come in, will kind of bring a lot more of a professionalism of how to run a sports team, because that's what we are. Obviously, we're Rangers, and we do stuff like this, and we follow the club all over the world whenever there's games and stuff. But it's a sports club, and that we need to make sure that we're one of the best, but the best sports club that we can be. And unfortunately, in recent years, that hasn't been the case. So we probably haven't maximised on commercial deals, even though we're probably being told that we were. I think Briscoe just come in and said, anyone that wants to do anything, doesn't matter what your reputation is, just come in. Look at the Australia fiasco. Do you know what I mean? That was just an example of someone in the club thinking, I tell you what, we'll make money, but I tell you what, we won't do our due diligence. We won't ask one Rangers fan whether we think this is a good idea. So I'm hoping these guys are going to come in with the appreciation of what a big club looks like, because Leeds are a big club in their own right. And then getting back up to the Premier League is the equivalent of us winning the league or us getting into the Champions League. So if that's the kind of ambition that they're looking to try and run with, then I'm all aboard. Do you know what I mean? And we've now got access to a brand that has worldwide contacts in terms of sponsorship and stuff. So you think about the deals that the 49ers will be doing and the deals that Leeds have had to negotiate over the years. These guys will know what good looks like. And I think like the Red Bull shirt sponsor is a really good example of that. That's no coincidence. Do you know what I mean? That there's tens of thousands of sponsors out there. The fact that Leeds are sponsored by, I think Leeds might be the only, I might be wrong here, but I think Leeds might be the only shirt sponsored Red Bull club outside of the Red Bull chain. So that's obviously a good deal. They will know how to get a good shirt deal out of Red Bull. So it's things like that you think, yeah, that works. You wonder how much, when we've renewed all the contracts, whether it's been Unibet and all the different companies we've had through the years, you wonder whether we've going in there with, I hate to use the John Bennett phrase, best in class negotiating, but where have we got bang for our buck in terms of shared sponsors and deals and stuff? The Castor one's probably slightly unique in the fact that we were desperate to get away from obviously Mike Ashley and everything that went with there, and Castor come in, and by all accounts have been a really good strategic partner for us. There's been some ups and downs in the road. I don't think anyone could disagree with that. but in terms of the support that they give us building the new megastore, the new store, the distribution's improved, and we've just seen them go from strength to strength. So you just wonder whether these guys coming in will do things a lot more different. And when Liverpool come in, their first shirt sponsor, I think under the Americans, was Warrior. Don't know if you guys
Yeah,
remember that. And
yeah.
who are these guys? But I think at the time it was their most lucrative deal that they'd ever had in their history. Do you know what I mean? Even though they'd had the big brands of your Adidas and your, I don't know whether they've had Nike or whoever it was throughout the years. So it just goes to show that utilising these contacts could be really key for us. I'm hoping that's the big thing I'm hoping we get from these guys is they raise our profile worldwide in terms of whether that looks at increasing the brand across the US, whether it includes better link-ups, because we've got link-ups with teams overseas. But what do we do with them? Orange County, I think we sent 2 kids on loan. We've done a 5-minute documentary on RTV. You've got the team in India. You've got Hamburg. We played them in 1 pre-season friendly. Like, I mean, how can we utilize the relationships that we do build up better? So these are the type of things that I'm hoping commercially we do see a lot more. But there will be challenges with that as well, because they'll see that a TV documentary, for example, will make lots of money. We're a club that needs lots of money. So to your point here at the start of the show, they're going to do stuff that we're not going to like, and we've got to accept. These guys aren't coming in just going, yeah, there's some money, guys, just crack on. We're gonna see some things that we don't like, but we've just got to hopefully trust that in the long term there's a benefit to the club.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really well thought out answer there, JB, in terms of what to expect from these guys. It'll be fascinating to see how much time the fans give. I don't see us being, although they've achieved relatively quick success with Leeds, I don't see us being perhaps as patient with the Leeds fans if things aren't quite going to plan. But just a bit of fun here in terms of a question. I've asked this earlier on. Iain, so I'll come to you. What one improvement, if you were sat down in front of the board, what one improvement would you ask the new owners to make on the pitch or off it, Iain? And get your comments in as well.
It's hard because, like I said in that answer before, we're so many problems at every different level, which is a great way to start a nice positive fun section. But for me, it is a case of, like, on the pitch obviously is the most important thing. Like, I don't really care what goes on off the pitch if we're winning on the pitch. So, you know, that's always going to be my priority. Like, there's so many guys in this squad that I want rid of. I know we spoke before we came live. You can make a list of like 10, 15 names that we just happily get rid of. There's probably 10 or 15 names you need to get rid of if we're going to become successful, because these guys aren't coming in like for a laugh. They're not coming in just to play about. They're coming in to like enhance their own brand, to make more sponsorship deals, make money. And the only way we make money to them is being in the Champions League. And the only way we guarantee that is win the leagues. It's a big chain reaction of things that's going to please these guys in terms of what they're looking to do with the club. So it's going to be the investment on the pitch. And obviously there's going to be a few things about like financial fair play and stuff that we can maybe spend so much. But that's where, as JB was saying, these guys are going to know different avenues, different ways to increase your revenue, different ways to bring more sponsorship, more branding. Like, a perfect example for me is that Ibrox might get changed names at some point. Like, people will go mental at that. People will be raging. I couldn't care less if it gets us an extra 20 million a year. Same idea as certain friendlies, certain games. I mean, I know JB touched on the Old Firm friendly on Australia that gets shot down. That's maybe a step too far, obviously, but there's just so much more avenues that we could be reaching. Because how big a club are we? And yet we struggle to make money. Like, that, it seems mental to me with how much shirts we buy, how much games we go to, ticket prices, all this stuff. And yet we don't have a big war chest of funds to play with because our TV deal's crap. Our signings are kind of poor overall. And we're not going to make money from any, like, the SFA aren't going to give us money. As I said, the Sky deal's not any good. So we're going to need to make our own money and make our own revenue streams. And that's where these guys have surely been there, done it, know who to bring in, where to bring them in, what sponsors to do. Like, we're going to be experts in this. So that's my main excitement, that you get that money from sponsorships, you put that on the park, you win trophies. It's just this big chain reaction, and life will be great, and we'll be smiling all these podcasts. Very easy podcast for us in the future when we're just winning everything. I can't wait for that.
I know the club were good. We won. We'll take that. Some of the comments coming in here says RW says the only improvement is winning trophies. The rest can come later. Graham Brown says increased capacity to 70k for revenue. I've seen those tweets and photos doing the rounds of them. I think I see you nodding your head there, JB, in agreement. They've just like kind of filled the corners in, which kind of makes the most amount of sense to increase the capacity. Bluebells are blue says for me 5 or 6 quality players starting at defence, including keeper right through the spine. So essentially 5 at the back, including keeper, 2, 3 through the spine. And Big Phil, I always say this, it could be him, we don't know. He just says some swanky toilets, which I think we can all get behind. Chris M says we need to sign 2 good left wingers and 2 good right wingers. One could be Czerny if we could afford it. And KW says winning the league first, everything else will follow suit. JB, say you're sat in front of this new board and they say, JB, what one change would you ask us to make? What are you telling them?
I'll go slightly different. And I agree with everything. Winning is just essential. So getting that team built on the park is 100% the priority. I'm going to throw one a bit rogue. Better pre-season tournaments. So because we're just absolutely starved of decent pre-season games, and I think if you have a good they keep saying if you have a good pre-season, then there's a chance that you're going to do well. And the last good pre-season we had was in that tournament in Lyon, was it? Where we played, was it Lyon, Nice, over two games over 4 days or something? And
the Viola
Cup, yeah. But I'm not being funny. Them 2 games really got us ready for that start of that season. We looked really competitive. We looked fit. Looked really good. So unfortunately, there wasn't many fans there, if I remember rightly. I think it was Rangers fans pretending they were emergency workers in France. But something like that, or an Ibrox tournament, or something there. An Ibrox tournament would be. I don't understand why we don't do things like that more, because you're going to get groups of fans coming in and around the stadium, spending money, selling tickets in the superstore. In Edmonton House, you could have guest speakers at night. There's just absolutely there's an endless amount of opportunities you could do, especially tapping into the fact that things are quite exciting at the moment as well. So pre-season friendly with Leeds, home and away, 2-legged tournament.
I was going to say there's got to be some kind of Red Bull based tournament here. Leeds, Leipzig, Salzburg, us. Like that's just.
And that's actually an interesting model, because I'm not saying we want to go into that umbrella, but if there was a Red Bull Cup, you're playing a few good different oppositions, and you're actually getting into some relationship building there as well as that play. How many times have we signed players off the back of a pre-season friendly? I think Calvin Bassey caught the eye when we played the under 21s, for example. Yep. I think Gerard caught a few Joe Aribo's eye in a youth tournament and stuff like that. And we won't go into Michael Beale's talent spotting, but we'll leave that one. We'll leave that one in the bin. But in terms of that, yeah, I want us to have a good pre-season and be ready for these Champions League qualifiers. I know it was mentioned at the fans forum, I think, in terms of that they know when the qualifiers are going to be, and we've got to make sure that we're ready for that. That's a non-negotiable for me. We have to come into them pre-season games flying. The games have to be at Ibrox, which will be a step up from last season, and then go from there. So yeah, I think a good pre-season would be my on my wish list. But the top is winning. That's the only thing.
Yeah. Oh, listen, I think you've really sparked something here. Tommy's Cardigan pipes up and he says, "Remember the Ibrox tournament with Sam Paduria?" And Graham Brown says, "Pre-season in the Red Bull in USA Red Bull tournament, make a mint." I'm thinking, do you remember the Tenant Sixes that used to happen? Can you imagine it was the Red Bull Sixes, and we just got to see them playing 6-a-side, something like that at Ibrox? I would absolutely love it. So if anybody's got any ideas for pre-season friendlies, get them in, and we'll maybe have a wee look at them at the end there. But Iain, I'll come to you here for the
sorry, Carl, just while we're on that point before we move on, I was part of I think it was a My Jazz fans thing for the 150th anniversary. I got invited on. I think it was Greg Marshall, SLO, done a kind of an ideas session of things that we could do. And one of the things I suggested at the time was an Ibrox tournament at the start of the season with all the clubs that we've got a tie-in with. So it would give everybody a chance to look at all these clubs that we've got a tie-in with and say, are these players any good? And are there any of them we could take on trial? So whether it's the club in India, the Orange County, Hamburg, for example, and just have a 4-team tournament with all of them playing each other, your scouts watching them, and you might look at it and go, nah, it's nonsense. But it would be something that would link into what we're trying to do. But again, that feels a little bit forward thinking.
I know it would finally give me an excuse to get my Bengaluru FC top out of the cupboard and dust it off. See, it's still so random that we have partnerships with clubs like that, but there must be some reason for it. But Ian, we have skirted around it a couple of times. The Red Bull name has been mentioned. JB mentioned it in his excellent answer previously. There's too many links at the club at the moment with terms of people. Red Bull, Kevin Thelwell, the new sporting director, he was obviously at Red Bull New York doing the same job for them over there. And Steinson and Marat, obviously down at Red Bull Leeds. I was going to call them Red Bull Leeds there. God, they're nearly getting messages for Leeds fans coming in. But would you welcome a relationship with Red Bull? Because I seem to remember, do you remember when we had that terrible Puma shirt? I'm sure it was Pedro Caixinha era, and I remember one of the papers had the Red Bull logo plastered across it. And initially when I saw it, I'm not too sure if I was for the Red Bull thing, but seeing what they've done, some of the teams that have had success, would you be a bit more open to this? Would it be a good thing for Rangers?
I'm all for it. Yeah, they're a massive company. They put a lot of money into football between like Leipzig, Salzburg, obviously Leeds now. Like these teams have been successful purely from that money kind of thing. Like RB Leipzig wouldn't be anywhere near what they are without the Red Bull sort of piece of work that goes into them. So more importantly for me, the fact that it's just bringing money in, they obviously know how to do this successfully. And as I said before, they've got proven track records of being successful, bringing in this kind of like deals and markets. And I said it before, I couldn't care less what they change the name of. If they change the stadium name, if they change the training ground name, if they change anything, like who cares? We're still going to call it the same things. And I'm sure I said this in a podcast before, but nobody calls like the Camp Nou or Nou Camp, whatever you want to go. Nobody calls it the Spotify Camp Nou, but it is called that. And Barca make what 200 million a year for that. It's so backwards in my eyes if you just don't get on board with this kind of stuff, because the more of that sort of deals come in, the more money we can spend and the more money we'll make. So it's just absolute gold dust to do. And I know it's a bit of chat about how we've got a year left for the current like branding on the front of the shirt, but these guys could easily buy that deal out, put their stamp in it and go from there. So I wouldn't be that shocked if one of the first things that happens is that like shirt branding changes immediately. So it's exciting. Again, it's more money coming in. Why would anyone be against that?
Yeah, Bluebells Are Blue here says the red, white and blue stadium I'm in. Tommy's Cardigan said, agreed in the naming rights, don't care if it puts trophies in the cabinet. And Jimbo says sponsorship is what it is. JB, how would, as a question I've got later on, but how would you feel like that about a potential stadium name? Would you bother about it if it brought in, I mean, it's never going to bring in something like 200 million quid, but even an extra 15 million pounds a year, I mean, that seems like something that we kind of snip our noses off at.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the naming rights of things and situations, I wouldn't lose any sleep. I'm not signing up for Red Bull Rangers. I don't think I'm ready for that in my life. I'll leave that one at the door. But in terms of the naming rights for stadiums and stuff, it's nothing, is it? Do you know what I mean? It could have been, just trying to think like one of the stands. Do you know what I mean? I think we've done that before. Was it that Oxide State stand or something? There was big sponsorship across the top. Yeah, BioWave. So yeah, stuff like that. And the good thing is it's the right colours, isn't it? So in terms of doing that, that would be, I wouldn't have any hesitation if they wanted to rename Edmonton House to the Red Bull Arena. Wouldn't bother me at all. So yeah, I'm all aboard stuff like that. I think the key with once you get involved with teams like this, it's sharing that network. of information. So you look at, am I right, Erling Haaland went via RB, he went via, Salzburg, sorry, yeah. Went via Salzburg to then Leipzig. I mean, I'm not saying we're going to get the next Erling Haaland, do you know what I mean? But we might get a couple of little diamonds that potentially we wouldn't have even had in consideration for. So things like that, I think you would reap the benefits. I don't know if we're getting a bit of ahead of ourselves in terms of whether Red Bull were going down that road. But certainly in terms of sponsorship, I definitely think in terms of these guys will be looking for the big boys. I mean, you've only got to look at a smaller scale, but look at what the American lads have done with Wrexham. Do you know what I mean? They've got United Airlines on the shirt sponsors. They've
TikTok,
got TikTok sponsor.
Yeah.
So these guys have just knocked on someone's door and just gone, "How'd you fancy being involved in a bit of this?" We've got a Disney documentary. It's going to get watched all around the world. We're chasing to get to the Premier League. Can you imagine somebody trying to get their hands on Rangers' story and a behind the wall thing of Rangers? It would. Don't get me wrong. It would be wild. It would be wild. But can you just imagine? But can you imagine it with someone like Steven Gerrard behind it? And I know that's another conversation in terms of the manager piece. But can you imagine what that the type of audiences that would be getting? I mean, how many people would have tuned into we've said it before, the inside Ibrox 55 celebrations in the training ground, which has never appeared for one reason or another. So things like that, I think, will definitely be on the agenda. That is a non-negotiable. And the fact that we're seeing Man City do it, we've seen Leeds do it. We won't mention the fact that Tottenham have done it. I know Liverpool have done it in the past. So it's out there, it's working, it's bringing in revenue, and yeah, I'm all for all that stuff.
Yeah, no, there's a few good comments coming in here. Bluebells are Blue says the red, white, and blue Bull Rangers. Robert Robertson says it will always be Ibrox, no matter how they dress it up. Richard Allen here's gone with the Red Bull Arena. Scott Hammond, this is quite funny. He says you need a vodka and Red Bull to watch us the now. And Graham Brown steps. He says, "What about Bullocks? That's certainly the way the team have been playing for the majority of the season." But Ian, I'll ask you this next question here. Like I said, we're getting not carried away, but we're allowing ourselves a bit of excitement. It's been a terrible season. There's a bit of light that I think we can all see just at the very, very end of the tunnel here. But I don't want to be doom and gloom about it. But I wouldn't be doing my job as a host if I never asked you this aspect of it. But see, with all these, these multi-club ownerships they've got, my big concern is that the multi-club like conflicts, are these guys going to go out and buy another club? Are they going to go, and does that make Rangers, because they say that they're going to treat everybody, all the clubs the same, they're not going to prioritize it, but you look at the way that the Man City group or the City group runs, there is a hierarchy of that. Man City are sitting right at the top of that pyramid. I almost can't help but feel that it might slip into that. I think there are really, really good pros from a big multinational corporation coming in like that. You've got the investment. I think the infrastructure they've put in at Leeds is really good. I think Rangers as a club, internally, that does need modernised. There are things in the stadium that could need modernised. We are doing it very, very slowly. We just don't seem to be doing it at the pace of a lot of other clubs you see in the English Premier League. I'm really, really excited about the potential for the youth development, as you both talked about. The guys at Leipzig they've bought through, the guys at Salzburg they've bought through. But I just can't help but feel we would maybe slide down the pecking order if something like that happened. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. It's a funny one, because if you take like the Rangers aspect out of it, I do hate this in modern football. I think that example that always annoys me is, see the guy Savinho at Man City, the winger. He was bought, I can't remember where from, but he went to Troyes in France because they're owned in the City group. Never played for them, but went over to, was it Girona, who are also owned by the same group. It was brilliant for them, and as soon as he got to that level, he just then moved on to Man City. So that first club never even saw him. And I would be a bit fearful if we were in that sort of side of it. But again, you could look at that as a positive, that we might get a couple of like free loans of absolute top quality players who, as JB said before, we might never have got near. But now we do get them for a year or two just to kind of let them develop and stuff. So there's some positives there. But again, no disrespect to Leeds at all, but Leeds aren't Man City. So I'm hopeful that when these guys come in, obviously it's a very similar sort of setup in terms of the board and the management and whatnot, but we're as big a club as Leeds are, like fan-wise and support-wise and possible revenue-wise. Obviously that goes way out the window now Leeds in the Premier League, so that is the fear that do they put a bit more focus on Leeds kind of thing, but I don't think it takes much to make, I'm not going to say make Rangers great again, because that's still incorporated at this point, but it's not going to take a lot of money for us to get back to the success and winning trophies and building a good team if they get all that sponsorship right. So bit of a negative obviously to this side of it, but it's just modern football now. It's one of those things we need to just get on board with, take it as it comes, and hopefully it doesn't go against us, because again, it's better than not having to take over at this point. I think we'd all agree, so it's worth the risk.
Yeah, as the sort of general feeling in the comments is maybe that if the out of the clubs they've got, Rangers have maybe got the best chance of being in the Champions League, and that might be the sort of the thing that they prioritise most. I mean, because this mob coming in, it'll be fascinating to see what they do, because I can see them putting money into the club quickly, because you put in a bit of investment into it. I mean, let's face it, that's why they've identified us, because they see it as they can put in, they don't have to invest as much as other teams, and it's a route into the Champions League. So it'll be absolutely fascinating to see how it all plays out and see how it all goes. But yeah, just on you go, JB.
Just on that, mate, just as you start to say that then, in terms of what potentially why we've been identified, we're 4 games away from being in the Champions League group stages. Do you know, like, how many teams are they looking at that could say they're in that position? Do you know what I mean? And based on what they've seen we can do in Europe, whether it be through atmospheres at Ibrox or whether it through anything else, this current playing squad have proved, and as bad as this current playing squad have been, they've proved that we can compete at that second, I'm not going to say the top table, but we can certainly compete at the second table, and go and do really well. So there's definitely something special about the club, that these guys, if they get their act together, we could be ready for something special at the start of the season. And I did like the fact that Patrick Stewart referenced it at the fans forum when I said earlier. It's so important in terms of the outlook of our team. Do I think we're going to be able to build a team next year that's going to be all singing, all dancing throughout the whole season? Probably not. Realistically, I don't think we're in a position. We've got too many players in the squad that either just don't get it domestically or don't pick and choose when they turn it on. So we're going to need to make sure that we're bringing in 3, 4, 5 really, really good, strong players to get us straight into them Champions League qualifiers, and absolutely flying with no excuses. So it's going to be super interesting in terms of the way it pans out. The Leeds thing, but you just touched on there, though, it'll be interesting to see whether this comes out. Will they share scouting information? Because that could be massive. They could be looking for players for the English Premier League and go, we don't think he's ready for the English Premier League. You're going to have to throw 3 or 4 million at him, but he could be ready in 2 years' time. Hamza Egerman style, where you go, we've identified someone there. Leeds might go, we'll buy him and we'll send him up to Glasgow on loan for a year. He's not ready for the Premier League, but you know what? He could go and rip it up in front of 50,000 passionate fans every other week. He could learn that way. Now, you don't want to fill your team full of them type of players, but 1 or 2 players that could be your Spark, your Kante's from the 2nd Division of France, your Mahrez's from the 2nd Division of France. These type of guys that you pick up and go, oh, there's a diamond there. No point in sitting in the Leeds under 21s, gaining experience. Let's send them up there and do stuff like that. So yeah, it's all ifs, buts and maybes. There might be no connection. The 2 clubs mightn't talk at all. So it's pissed on our chips. But you've only got to look at Daniel Farke as at what point does he become favoured to be the Rangers manager if this relationship is tight? So, but that's probably another pod again.
Yeah, no, it'll be absolutely fascinating to see. But in terms of what you were saying there about recruitment and who we're bringing in, the most encouraging thing that I've seen over the past since last week when I was doing all the research for Kevin Thelwell coming in, there was one of the snippets that he said in one of his interviews that he said when he was at New York Red Bull, he would look and they would see players and he could with his group, and they were identifying players and they would say these are very, very good players, but they're not the right fit for New York Red Bull. And I just don't want us to take like punts on people that we have been doing in the past, like, you know, your Oscar Cortezes and stuff like that, where I mean, we'll maybe get to it later on in the podcast where it's not worked out. But yeah, it'll be fascinating to see what the recruitment strategy is going forward, if they are going to moneyball it, if they're going to invest in, you know, Scottish players, which we're just about to come on to, or if they're going to, you know, have a bit more of a pragmatic approach and have some high spends. I just don't know. I think it'll be somewhere of a mix of all three of those approaches, might be getting the perfect blend. But Iain, I'll come on to you to this next part, and that is the young Scottish players that Rangers should be looking at. Firstly, guy that was mentioned a wee bit earlier on, or I'll maybe put these two together. Josh Mulligan of Dundee. He's a right wing back. He's had 5 assists, and he's been fit for most of the season. I think he's only 21, 22. James Penrice, he's a bit older, 26, but he's a left back. Had a very, very solid season at Heart and a poor Hearts team. But to me, this is a player that we should be looking at. I'm not saying these guys are going to be like the standout players in the team, but I think a good Scottish core is important for Rangers to have success. What do you make of these guys? And could you see us looking at Scottish defenders to sort of bulk up the squad?
Yeah, I think it's a very good point. It's something we just don't have in terms of footballers, is reliable footballers. And I don't mean that like ability-wise, because we have good players, but we just have guys that can't stay fit. And again, you can't just buy players because they stay fit, but these guys would make us better. Like Penrice would probably be our starting left back if he was in terms of he's had a good season. He's been there all season. He won Hearts Player of the Year. He won the Players Player of the Year. So he's got a good footballing ability. And if you compare it to like a Ridvan who plays half the season, if that, doesn't quite suit the league, doesn't get as many assists, doesn't get his goals. I like Ridvan, to be fair, as a footballer. I think he's quite good, but he's just not built for Scottish football, so we should be moving him out. Jeff Day's a bit more of a project kind of guy who should have been like the understudy, shouldn't have played anywhere near as much as he did this season, but even going forward, I don't see him as our starting left back. So I think the Penrice one would make sense. I'm pretty sure it would cost a bit of a fee, of course, because Hearts do like him. It's probably interesting down south as well, so it's not going to be cheap there. The Mulligan one is a bit of Mulligan, got mixed up, but he's a free, isn't he? Because the contract's up. That one is same as Lyle Cameron. Absolute no-brainer. Like, there's no risk there. I don't know if he comes in as a starter straight away, because, again, Tavernier is still here. I hope he goes in the summer. I think we all kind of would agree that, but you don't know that. And if a guy in that money's here, he's probably playing. So I think in an ideal world, we'd have Tav out, Ridvan out, bring in these two boys, and then probably bring in another starter on top of these players who you could rely on a little bit more. But again, this is the kind of stuff that's going to need to be worked out by a manager, and that can only happen when the board goes through. So it's a hard one, because a guy could come in and not fancy those. So you need everyone to be aligned straight away from the get-go, especially these Champions League games coming up. But when you look outside of that, I don't see too much in Scotland other than Lennon Miller, who I'd be that keen on bringing in. Obviously, the boy Wilson at Hearts gets a decent name, but he's 17. He's still very raw. I don't think he would come here and play very much at all. So it'd be more of like signing him to loan him back out. Beyond that, I can't see anyone who right now makes Rangers a better team that's Scottish. And it's sad, but it is the fact. If we want to get better, we need to bring guys in from elsewhere. It's just a must.
Yeah, a few comments coming in here. KW says, yeah, I agree, Penrice could do a job. Mark Dewey says, Dewey says you would be better with Nathan Patterson. I think if we are going to be signing any loan players next year, they're going to have to be of a very, very good caliber. I'm not saying that Nathan Patterson's not of a good caliber, but if he's coming back to the club, I would only take him if we've got him for a permanent fee, and I just can't see that happening. It wouldn't be a podcast if we didn't mention this name. Tommy Scargan says Shankland, free transfer, no brainer, third choice striker. Mark Doy again says, but these guys are not consistent week in, week out. KW again says, watched Penrith against Aberdeen, they got forward a lot. Then there's another comment here. I'll come to you, JB. Jimbo says, we missed the boat on Lennon Miller. If you'd asked me 6-7 months ago, JB, I would have said no chance to a guy like Lennon Miller coming in. I know, I work in and around Motherwell. I work with a lot of Motherwell supporters. They all come in and they all rave about him every time he plays. My only concern would be is that he is a wee bit injury prone. I think maybe the new investors coming in, he is a guy that we could look at. And the other guy, James Wilson, he's the PFA nominee, young player as well as Lennon Miller in that group. He's been, again, great for Hearts in a really, really poor Hearts team. 18 years of age, had 15 games for them and he scored 5 goals. Is this the type of guy as well that we should be looking out, bringing in to develop? Can you see the new owners doing that?
I don't know whether that type of sign will be a priority. I think we should have been getting these guys prior to them making their debuts in the Premier League. We should have a model in such a way that we're pulling these guys prior to them getting there. But players are probably looking at us over the last few years and probably looking and going, "Nah, I'm not going there to go and sit in there what was their B team and is now what is it now? We haven't got it now. We've got nothing set up for these guys to come in and play. I don't think our loan model has been particularly good. Bailey Rice, for example, he should have come in and went straight back to Motherwell. If Motherwell had a plan for him to play football, he should have been going straight back out there and then reaping the rewards of somebody who's got the talent playing at that level. But he's stagnated, and that's been identified now under Beale, under Ferguson, under Clement as well. So, yeah, in terms of the players that you've mentioned there, I don't think I'd kind of turn my nose up at any of them. I think Shankland going kind of from top of the pitch to backwards feels like an absolute no-brainer in terms of salary. Wouldn't be too much of a concern. We know he's a Rangers fan, not the only reason. He knows where the back of the net is. He's played number 10 this year to show that he's got a different side to his game. So anybody looking at his numbers and going, "Oh, he's not getting the numbers he used to," that's because of in terms of the position he's playing. So I think he could be a bit of a Billy Dodds for us. I'm not talking about a guy who gets involved in rondos and training, but in terms of he knows where the back of the net is. He's 2-footed. He can play a little bit. His injury record I don't think is too bad in comparison to what we've seen, and he ticks the Scottish box as well. So in terms of having him, if you give me the choice now of him or Danilo, for example, then it's a bit of a no-brainer because we know that one's going to be available and one is learning to walk again after his injury from last year. He's just never appeared. He hasn't reappeared, has he, consistently? So these type of signings on low money, and if it doesn't work after 6 months, you'll have a buyer for them in January because it's easy. That lawnmower going off there. So you've got that, and then you've got Penrice, which I agree with. If we could get to 2.5 million for Yilmaz, do you bring in Penrice for $1 million? You go through the team, and people are saying Lennon Miller paying $4 million is too much to pay for him. We're paying this money for Bajramis and Cortez's and Danilos and Dessers.
That's a great point. Yeah.
So we're paying. There's the best part of 16 million that we've lashed out for. I was going to say horse shit, but yeah, about time we on 22 months past April with that. It's one of them, isn't it? In terms of we're lashing this big money out because we think we're chasing someone, whereas Lennon Miller or Cortez, put that one on a poll. Do you know what I mean? And there would only be somebody that's clicked the wrong button if they've selected Cortez. Mulligan feels like a good signing. And then my dad done his own scouting mission on him at the weekend to see what he was all about. He got the thumbs up from TV, so that was good. Lyle Cameron's obviously coming in as well. We haven't mentioned him in terms of him coming in and the impact he's going to have. And the only other Scottish one that's kicking about, but I think he's one of them, is Kevin Nisbet. In terms of, I don't think Millwall would be difficult to negotiate with. He's in form. So again, if you're looking for that third choice striker, could somebody like that tick a box for us? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. I wouldn't take Kevin Nisbet personally. There's one name here that I've totally forgotten about. Graham Port-Loyal pipes up and he says Bobby Wales on a free also. He's a guy that I would have at Rangers all day long. Again, playing quite well and amongst poor squads, and you can't think with better players round about them these guys would go on. And Mark Doy here, and this is, I think, not that I'm wanting Raskin to go, but I think we need to sell him this year, given that he's got 2 years left in his deal. It says sell Raskin and bring in Lennon and Miller. That I think that would be a relatively good. I know they're not exactly the same type of player, but I think as Rangers supporters, if that happened, we could get behind a move like that. Right, just before we move on to the Old Firm preview, just a quick one for you here, Ian. Yeah, it was yesterday in the Glasgow Cup at Casanwirio. A name. I saw him. I don't know if you guys remember, but he was actually at the Atletico Bilbao Fenerbahce New Edmondson House doing that, and I thought that's a bit strange. I wonder if you're just over here because you're part of the squad, and you're just kind of seeing your old pals. And then I never thought I would see him in a Rangers shirt, and there he is. Playing for the under 23s, I think it is technically, in the Glasgow Cup yesterday. First of all, Ian, what did you make of this? And is Casemiro a guy you would sign?
It depends what you mean by sign, because if we put any money to him, I am leaving. I'm done, because we need to learn these things. If it's one of those ones, I've seen everyone say it, if it's a loan with no obligation, you just see how he gets on next year, he stays injury free, he's a viable option, it's a no-brainer, as we keep saying, because when he was playing, he was good. I liked him. Very versatile, very strong, good potential. He ticked most of the boxes you want to see, so all for that. But like you, I just thought we would kind of rip up that contract when he got injured, because this is kind of best case scenario. We'll be back for 2 or 3 games at the end of the season. Like, why would we have kept this on unless we were planning it properly long term? So it's a strange one. I didn't watch the game last night. I saw the goal, obviously, which is pretty tidy of him, but it's so strange. Maybe these last 3 games you can get, or last 4 games, you can get a bit of a run out just to kind of see how he's done after his injury, because as we know, these injuries can kill a career, as Danilo's seen with a kind of sort of similar, a bad one in the knee. So I would be very annoyed if we spent money on him right now. But I do remember the fee before was like, what, 1.5 million? So
yeah,
it seems like a good deal, but we can't spend more money on players that aren't available and have bad injury records. I think that's his 2nd or 3rd bad knee injury, and he's 21, 22. So as good a player as you are, if you're going to sit in the stands and do your Edmondson House gigs every week, I don't want you here. So a little harsh, but he needs to prove himself before we spend any money on him, for me.
It's like this. You'd think I would learn my lesson like every time. I mean, it's just on paper, Dutch under 21 international can play left back, centre back, and right back. It ticks. It's almost like the Alan McGregor against Aberdeen. How many boxes does it tick, John? Do you know what I mean? Like it for 1.2, 1.5 million. But a couple of comments here. Bluebells are blue says Castle's back in training with us 3 weeks ago. I'd have him back, but only on loan with another option to buy. No way are we paying anything for him now. I think his contract at Feyenoord might be up in 2026. So what player does that remind you of in terms of Oscar Cortez, where we might go out and get him on loan with an obligation to buy? Mark Doy says he's back in training with the first teams. And Graham Partloyal says Casas had 3 major knee issues in his career, shouldn't even be thinking about it. It's the hope that will kill you, isn't it? And I've just been corrected. Bluebells are blue says it's 2027 his contract runs out. So yeah, maybe there is.
That might help us, to be fair, because if it was 2026, they're not going to loan him to us with no option. It would be a case of, no, you're buying him or we're selling him somewhere else. So if he's got an extra year there, it might just help that loan with no option side of it.
He could even sign an extension to his Feyenoord deal, and then we take him on a year's loan. I think there's things that could be done there, I think.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. James Glasgow says physically he was head and shoulders above our boys, and I agree. It was that Malmo game when he started it, brought in as a right back, started at left back, and I thought this boy's actually a bit of a player. I was always impressed by him. So yeah, if we could work out a deal to just get him back on loan for a year, I think I would be happy at that. But don't please, for the love of God, don't put an obligation to buyer. You know, his knees are going to be chocolate in about 2 weeks after signing that deal. JB, we've just got the last sort of 5-10 minutes of the podcast to go here. There is a game at the weekend, at Ibrox at the old firm. How are you feeling leading up to it, and what's your thoughts on who should be playing? Who would you have starting in that game?
I was thinking about this before when we were talking about the agenda. There's not a lot of options in terms of even tweaking the shape. I don't think we can even go to a back three. I don't think we've got that luxury. So I think it's going to have to just be your standard team that we've seen this season that has let us down so many times, but hasn't let us down in some of the bigger games. So you're probably going to be looking at the one I was going to be interested. Could Butland come back in? And I think my logic behind that is it's a high profile match. We know what Liam Kelly can do. We know what Liam Kelly can do next season. Jack Butland, we probably I think people most probably lean on the side of get rid of him in the summer. If he finishes the season really strong as a big game on Sunday, people watching, does that put an extra couple of bob on his asking price? And the way I sum Liam Kelly up, he doesn't make saves that he shouldn't make, if that makes sense. He does enough, do you know, and that's not good enough to be a number one Rangers goalkeeper. Now he hasn't made any howlers. I don't think somebody could probably correct me in the comments. I think there's been things where you go, well, we could have done a little bit better that if he was a bit taller or whatever. But I don't think he does things that you go, yeah, that was Andy Gorham-esque, Alan McGregor-esque. You don't see that. Whereas with Butland, you do. He's got it in his locker. Unfortunately, he's just got the concentration level since that England rejection has just sent him west. So does he come back in? That's probably up for debate. And then you Tav, Suter, Proper, Jeffy. No other options, I don't think, unless someone can spring someone up.
Is Balogun not back? I know he had a kind of cheek thing, but I don't know if he was.
He'll be done. I think he's out. He'll be out for the season unless he's got a mask. It was a broken cheekbone, wasn't it? So I'd be surprised if we ever see him again in the Rangers shirt, to be honest.
5-6 weeks minimal coming back for that. I'll be stunned if he's played. I really would be.
However, if there's somebody that would want to play in that with a face mask, you put it in down as that guy. Baron, Diamandi, Raskin, Cherny, Dessers, Hadji, or Cortez. It is what it is, isn't it? I like to see a command leading the line and just seeing if it works, or are we going to wait till next season to see if he can lead a line on his own? So it just depends on whether Ferguson's treating it as a vanity project or whether he's preparing for next season.
It'll be interesting to see who does start this game. The one player that you've mentioned in there, JB, that I'm going to go and ask Iain about is you said the potential of Oscar Cortez. This is a guy for me that I think we possibly have to see playing. I understand, people calling for. I know they play in different sides of the wing. Václav Černý starting, but he's a lone player. He's going back to Wolfsburg. I'll be absolutely stunned if we see him playing. Rather, no, that's not true. If I was a manager, I wouldn't be giving him as much game time. I'd be playing one of the young players. Would you be playing? Could you see Cortez featuring a game like this? Because honestly, what does Ferguson have to lose by playing him?
Yeah, I think it's a hard one because he should be playing, but you're laughing at me. I thought that was going
just that. Yeah, Oscar Cortez, man.
I know. It's one of those ones where we've had this same chat. So a month ago, he should have been in to see what he's about. He could have had a goal or two by now. Could have seen what he's going to bring, because it's not like there's an option here. He's going to be a Rangers player next season. He's going to be here. So we needed to have seen something from him. And as JB touched on, I think it's Barry Ferguson wanting to put his name into that kind of short list for manager and try and win games. And obviously you want him to win games, but you need to kind of take a step back and say, like, we need to have some kind of point to these games. That's why I'd have Bailey Rice starting at the weekend. I'd have Inciala playing. Curtis should at least play a good bit of the game. And Cortez, again, has to at least get half an hour, because that's been a month now. He's been on the bench pretty much every week. So he must be fit. Like, he's in training every day. He's on the bench. He's available. But he's not even get on the pitch for a minute or two. Or obviously St Mirren there were chasing a goal. And he still doesn't come on. The Aberdeen game or leading a goal doesn't come on. So not only does Ferguson not trust him, but we need to be getting something for us, for our sake, for something to believe in with Cortez. So I'd love to see him start. I'd love to see Agaman start. Truth be told, I don't expect any of them to hang out with the same team as JB's just lifted off, and it'll annoy me.
Yeah, I'm similar to you two guys there. I think that it will be very similar to the team that started against St Mirren. I mean, like you guys, I'd have Egan up top. I wouldn't be starting Dessers if I had the chance, but I very much feel that it will be Dessers up top. Tommy's Cardigan here says Cortez is a player, keep the faith in him. Mark Dewey says can't put Cortez in against Celtic. But just before we go, there's too many comments here for me to read that, to ignore now. But Mark Doy here says, have any of you guys read tonight about Jack Butland saying he's off at the end of the season? And he's pretty fluent, said it's on the line tonight. Jack Butland says he's off to England at the end of the season. I know somebody, there was Dado Purcell's Blue Boots, also repping the Croatia badge for Dado Purcell tonight, by the way. But yeah, in terms of him, I seen there was chat for 3 million. Just before we finish up here, guys, I'll start with you, JB. Is that something that you would be happy with in terms of Jack Butland going back down to England? Would you be happy if he left the club?
Yeah. Yes, I'll go with yes. It's a shame because I think he, unlike goalkeepers that we've trial and errored, I think he's got so much to his game that is really good. However, we need a goalkeeper that might only have 1 or 2 things to do in a match, and they need to do them 1 or 2 things perfect. And unfortunately, this season he's shown that he can't do that consistently. His first 6 months, he was outstanding. And he's obviously he's got psychological challenges. I don't think there's any getting away from that. In terms of he was at Stoke, didn't get the big England call up, and then fell off a radar, and he's gone and done the same for us. So yeah, I mean, it's a shame because I like the big fella. I think he speaks really well. You can tell he's passionate. His interview that he done the other week, which was utterly bizarre, on the Fozcast podcast, timing, wow. But yeah, I think he'll go somewhere and he'll do okay under a place with low expectations. Just depends. I can't see him going anywhere to be a number 1. He might potentially be like a Birmingham City. Might be a good fit. They like to take a Rangers player off our hands. But that in terms of big club on the way up, trying to do things. Leeds United number 3, third choice goalkeeper. All of a sudden we're getting 10 million for him. I wonder where's that come from. So yeah, these are the dream stuff. But yeah, I think it needs a refresh, and no better place to start than your goalkeeper and your captain.
Yeah, some of the comments before I just ask you, Ian, and we wrap up. But KW says that's great, some money. Robert Robertson says Butland went south ages ago. Graham Park makes a good point here. He said they would get a huge wage bill, a wage off the books as well. Mark Doy's got confidence in Rangers picking up a good goalkeeper, and for what it's worth, Mason Munn is a guy that I would happily have.
I was about to say the same thing. Yep.
Excellent goalkeeper. And the final comment, Dado Purcell's Blue Boot says Butland's family want to move, which I don't really think you can argue with. But Ian, sorry if I stole your thunder a wee bit there, but what's your thoughts? I mean, realistically, what sort of fee would you take for Jack Butland? 3 million was what I saw in the comments. People are saying there's, Blue Whales are blue, no chance we'll get 3 million for him. What's your thoughts on it?
I don't think it's a no chance scenario because he is a very good goalkeeper on his day. Like, he's a quality goalkeeper. He's got a good career. He's got a good name down England. He's been close to England caps as recently as last year. So it's not a nobody we're talking about here. I think 2 or 3 million for a team down south, as JB says, in that backup goalie or third choice role, they don't care about that. That's fine. Like, say it's a Spurs, for example, want a third choice goalie, they will happily throw 3 million at one if it's a guy that's homegrown, he's international, good career, as I said. You'd expect 2 or 3 million. And again, the big one is obviously the wage off the books. Like, was it 30, 40 grand a week he's got to be on? That just paves the way for a couple of guys to come in at 20 grand and you're balancing your books kind of thing. So, yeah, it's a shame, as JB said. He seems like a great guy. He has had good moments for us, good moments this season as well, you can't forget. But he just doesn't have that concentration that we need. And if his family, again, a few people are saying that if his family want to move, it's probably the best thing that we both shake hands, move on, and try and bank some money from it. So yeah, I'd moving him on, try and find someone new.
Yeah, Graham Park Loyal here says English premium for quota, which I think is a really, really good point. And to be honest with you, I think the new owners, them coming in, I see them being quite firm negotiators, which will be fascinating to see. As we know, Gretnar Steinson looks like he might be a guy dealing with some of these things, and he looks like he won't take. If they ask for a price, I think they'll be the type of guys that are expecting it. But listen, thank you to everybody for tuning in. That just about wraps it up. That as it's a podcast where I'm coming, there's nothing to talk about, and that's us an hour and 5 minutes. But thank you to both my contributors on tonight, and thank you to everybody tuning in and watching. It's been a pleasure as always. So take care, everybody. I'm sure we'll be back on Sunday for the Old Firm game. But we'll see everybody soon. Take care, and we'll see you all soon.